I remember standing at the window of my tiny apartment in Rathmines, looking out at a Dublin skyline I barely knew, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a profound, unbelievable calm. It had been 4 months since I boarded that flight, since I walked away from everything I thought I knew, and the memory of it all still feels like a movie I watched, not something I actually lived. My name is Mark, I'm 31, a software engineer, and this is how I got here. For 3 solid years, Chloe and I were doing the adult relationship thing. We lived together in a decent apartment in Denver, split bills, and just navigated life. Everything felt, well, solid. Until February. That's when her ex-boyfriend, Noah, moved back to town after finishing his MBA in Florida. Chloe mentioned it casually over coffee one morning. Said they'd reconnected on Instagram, planning to grab lunch to catch up. I didn't think much of it. I'm not the type to freak out about exes. She assured me it was just friendly. Then, 2 weeks later, she announced she'd joined a book club. It met every Thursday evening at a coffee shop downtown. It seemed random. Chloe wasn't exactly known for her literary pursuits beyond Instagram captions, but I figured, hey, new hobby. The first few weeks seemed fine. She'd come home around 9 with a book in her hand, chatting about their discussion. Then, it became Thursdays and Saturday afternoons. Then, Friday nights got added to the schedule. I started noticing she'd shower and put on makeup before these book club meetings, which felt a little excessive for discussing novels with middle-aged women. When I mentioned it, she just laughed, told me I was being paranoid. Mid-March, my coworker, Ben, pulled me aside at lunch. He said his girlfriend had seen Chloe at a sports bar with some guy. Definitely not a coffee shop. And they looked pretty cozy. I brushed it off. Ben's girlfriend loved drama, but the seed was planted. That weekend, I casually asked Chloe what book they were reading. She froze. Just for a second. Then mumbled something about The Great Gatsby. We'd literally read that together in college. I knew she was lying. But I didn't confront her. I just wanted to see how far it would go. Here's the thing nobody tells you about relationships, there's a moment when you stop fighting for it and start documenting it instead. I hit that moment on a random Tuesday. Chloe's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. The preview showed, Noah, can't wait for Friday. Missed you so much. I just stared at it. And I felt nothing. Nothing at all. Which, honestly, was worse than anger. I didn't snoop. I didn't need to. The pattern was obvious. Book club was code for Noah, every single time. I sat on that information for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, something else was happening. My company had offered me a transfer to our Dublin office back in January, with a promotion and a significantly higher salary. I'd turned it down twice because Chloe had just gotten a promotion herself, and she made it clear she couldn't leave Denver. Said her career was finally taking off, and long distance would never work for us. I loved her, so I stayed. Told my boss I'd reconsider in a year. But now, sitting in our apartment, watching her get dressed up for book club for the 3rd time that week, I started seeing that offer very differently. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning in early April. Chloe announced she was spending the entire weekend at Noah's Lake House with the book club crew for a reading retreat. A whole weekend. She packed a bag with bikinis and sundresses. Not exactly standard book club attire. I asked her straight up if Noah would be there. She got defensive immediately. Why does it matter? Don't you trust me? And I told her, I trusted you until you started lying about where you were going. She exploded. Called me controlling, insecure. Said Noah was just a friend, and if I had a problem with her having male friends, maybe I needed therapy. I stayed calm. I just asked one simple question, if this is just an innocent friendship, why did you lie about the book club? She went quiet for a moment, then doubled down. Said she only called it book club because she knew I'd overreact if she said Noah's name. Which, ironically, just proved my point. But she couldn't see it. Then she hit me with it. That line. If you don't trust me hanging out with my ex every weekend, maybe we shouldn't be together. I looked at her, standing there with her overnight bag, all dressed up for another man's lake house, and something just clicked. I said, "You're absolutely right." In the calmest voice I think I've ever used. She wasn't expecting that. Her face went from angry to confused to slightly panicked in about 3 seconds. "What do you mean?" she asked. I said, "You're right. If I don't trust you, then we shouldn't be together. And I don't trust you. So we shouldn't be together." She tried to backtrack, immediately, said she didn't mean it like that, but I was already done. She left for the lake house anyway, probably thinking I'd cool off by Sunday. The second she walked out the door, I opened my laptop. Found the email from HR about the Dublin position. The deadline to accept had been extended to April 15th, exactly 72 hours away. I hit reply. Typed, "I accept the offer. When do I start?" And sent it before I could overthink it. My boss called me 20 minutes later, thrilled. Said they could have me on a flight in 3 weeks if I could wrap things up quickly. I spent the rest of that weekend boxing up my stuff, calling the landlord about breaking the lease early. The apartment was in both our names, but I was the primary leaseholder. I gave my 30-day notice, told the landlord Chloe would need to figure out her own housing situation. He wasn't thrilled about the short notice but understood, given the job transfer. I started selling furniture on Facebook Marketplace, kept only what I could fit into 3 suitcases. Chloe came home Sunday night, glowing and relaxed, smelling like sunscreen and lake water. She acted like nothing happened. She tried to cuddle on the couch. I moved away. She asked if I was still mad. "I'm not mad," I told her. "I'm done." But she thought I meant done with the conversation, not done with us. For the next 2 weeks, she kept up the book club schedule while I systematically dismantled our life together. My coworkers knew I was leaving. We had goodbye drinks. I updated my LinkedIn. But I kept my social media silent. Chloe posted Instagram stories from her book club meetings, which were clearly dates with Noah at restaurants and hiking trails. I saved every single one. She didn't notice I was packing because I did it gradually. And she didn't notice I was emotionally gone because she was too busy with Noah. The Thursday before my flight, she came home to find me with 3 suitcases by the door. She panicked. Asked where I was going. "Dublin," I said. She laughed, like it was a joke, until I showed her my work visa and flight confirmation. That's when she lost it. Started crying, asking how I could do this without telling her. I reminded her she's the one who said maybe we shouldn't be together. She tried every angle. Said she didn't mean it, she'd cut off Noah completely, she'd moved to Dublin with me, that I was throwing away 3 years over nothing. I just kept packing. She called her mom, her sister, her best friend, trying to get someone to talk sense into me. But I'd already told my own family, and they supported my decision. I mentioned the lease situation, and she freaked out even more. Realized she'd have to find a new place within weeks because she couldn't afford our apartment alone on her salary. She started blaming me for abandoning her, said I was being vindictive. But I reminded her she'd spent the last 2 months prioritizing Noah over our relationship. Now she was dealing with the consequences. The morning of my flight, Chloe was still asleep when I left for the airport. I didn't wake her. I got to the Denver airport, checked my bags, cleared security, and sat at the gate. My phone buzzed. A text from Chloe, "What are you doing this weekend?" Like she'd completely forgotten about the flight. I walked over to a window, where you could see the planes. Snapped a selfie with the Dublin airport departure board visible behind me, showing my flight number. Sent it to her with the caption, "You're absolutely right." Then I boarded the plane, put my phone on airplane mode, and didn't look back. The flight to Dublin was 11 hours. I slept through most of it. It was the first decent sleep I'd had in weeks. When I landed, I turned my phone back on and watched it explode. 47 missed calls from Chloe, 89 text messages, and about a dozen voicemails that progressively went from angry to desperate to threatening. I didn't listen to any of them. My company had arranged temporary housing in Rathmines, a fully furnished studio that cost more per month than our entire Denver place, but they were covering it for the first 60 days. I spent the weekend getting oriented, figuring out the bus system, buying groceries at Tesco, and generally pretending my phone wasn't vibrating every 20 minutes with Chloe's calls. By Monday morning, Denver time, she'd switched tactics. Started messaging my friends, my coworkers, even my mom. Telling everyone I'd had some kind of mental breakdown and abandoned her without warning. My mom called me, concerned, and I calmly explained the whole book club situation, the lying, the lake house weekend, everything. She went quiet for a minute, then said, "Good for you, honey. You deserve better." And that was that. The Instagram story started on Tuesday. Chloe posted a crying selfie with the caption, "When someone you love chooses their career over you," complete with sad music. Her friends flooded the comments with support, calling me selfish and heartless, saying, "Real men don't run away from problems." I didn't respond or react. I just kept living my life. My first week at the Dublin office was intense. Meeting the new team, getting up to speed on projects, trying to adjust to Irish work culture, which is similar to American, but with more tea breaks and slightly more passive-aggressive email etiquette. My new boss mentioned they'd been trying to fill my position for months and were thrilled to finally have someone with my experience. The salary difference was immediately noticeable. I was making significantly more than in Denver, and the cost of living somehow felt more manageable, despite Dublin's reputation. On Thursday evening, exactly 1 week after I left, I got a message from an unknown number with a Denver area code. It was a screenshot. A conversation between Chloe and Noah from 2 months earlier, where she explicitly told him she'd made up the book club excuse because I was too clingy and she needed space to figure out if she wanted to be with him instead. There were multiple screenshots, spanning weeks, showing her complaining about me to Noah, planning their meetups, even discussing how to handle it if I found out. The messages were damning. She told Noah she was planning to break up with me after his current studio lease ended in June, when he'd be moving into a bigger 2-bedroom place where they could live together. Meaning, she was just waiting for the right timing while stringing me along. The unknown number sent one more message, "Thought you should know the truth. Good luck in Dublin." And then blocked me before I could ask who they were. I sat there staring at my phone for a solid 20 minutes, processing everything. Part of me wanted to blast those screenshots everywhere, send them to everyone who'd called me heartless on her Instagram post, prove that I wasn't the villain. But honestly, I was just tired. I saved the screenshots to a folder and went to bed. Chloe somehow got my Dublin number, probably from my mom or a mutual friend, and called me Friday morning while I was getting coffee before work. I answered because I knew she wouldn't stop until I did. She immediately started crying. Said she missed me, that she'd stopped being friends with Noah completely, that the book club thing was stupid, and she was sorry. I let her talk for about 3 minutes. Then I said, "I got some interesting screenshots this week." She went completely silent. I could hear her breathing on the other end, probably trying to figure out what I knew and what I didn't. She asked who sent them. I said it didn't matter. What mattered was that I now had proof she'd been planning to leave me for Noah and was just waiting until his lease ended in June so they could move in together. She tried to deny it, said those messages were taken out of context, that she was just venting to a friend. But I cut her off. "You literally discussed which apartment you'd move into and talked about furniture shopping." She started crying harder, begging for another chance, saying she'd made a mistake and realized she loved me. I told her the truth. I didn't love her anymore. Hadn't loved her since I found out about the lying. I'd only stayed in Denver as long as I did because I was too comfortable to make a change. She got angry then. Said I'd used her as an excuse to avoid taking risks, that I was probably relieved to have a reason to run away. Maybe she was partially right. But it didn't change anything. I told her to lose my number and hung up. The weekend brought a new development. Chloe's Instagram story showed her at Noah's apartment. They were officially hanging out again, apparently despite her claims of cutting him off. Posting photos like they hadn't been sneaking around behind someone's back for months. Her caption was something about real friends stick around through the hard times, which made me laugh out loud in my tiny Dublin studio. The comments were split between supportive friends and people pointing out the suspicious timing. Someone even commented, "Didn't you have a boyfriend last week?" Chloe deleted it within minutes. My friends back in Denver started sending me screenshots of the drama unfolding in various group chats. Apparently, Chloe's story wasn't adding up, and people were starting to ask questions. Then on Sunday, I got the best message possible. My old coworker Ben, the one whose girlfriend had first spotted Chloe with Noah at the sports bar, sent me a screenshot from his girlfriend. Turns out Noah had a serious girlfriend the entire time. A woman named Isabella, who worked in tax compliance for the Internal Revenue Service in Washington, D.C., and had no idea Noah was seeing Chloe. Someone had anonymously sent Isabella screenshots of Noah and Chloe's Instagram stories, and she'd gone nuclear. Posted a long Instagram story exposing both of them, complete with receipts showing Noah had been lying to both women. The post went viral in our Denver social circle within hours. Isabella's post was methodical and devastating. She documented every lie, every fake excuse Noah had given her about working late or visiting his sick mom. Every weekend he'd supposedly been on business trips that lined up perfectly with Chloe's book club schedule. She tagged both of them, called Chloe a homewrecker, and ended it with, "To the ex-boyfriend who moved to Dublin, you dodged a bullet. Cheers, mate." I screenshot that line and sent it to my mom with a laughing emoji. By Monday morning, Denver time, both Chloe and Noah had made their Instagram accounts private, and the fallout was spreading. Mutual friends were messaging me, asking if I'd known about Noah's girlfriend, and I honestly hadn't, which somehow made the whole situation more satisfying. I hadn't even needed to expose them. They'd exposed themselves. My new routine in Dublin was starting to feel normal. Morning coffee at the local cafe downstairs, bus to work, evening walks along the River Liffey, weekend explorations of different neighborhoods. I joined a gym near my apartment and started going to a pub quiz night on Wednesdays at a place called the Brazen Head, just trying to build a normal life. Chloe kept trying different numbers to reach me, but I'd blocked them all. 2 weeks after the Isabella explosion, Chloe showed up at my old Denver apartment building with her mom and sister, apparently not accepting that I'd actually moved to a different continent. My former neighbor texted me that they'd seen her in the lobby demanding to know which unit I was in, and building security had to escort them out when she wouldn't leave. Her mom tried calling my mom afterward to arrange some kind of intervention, saying I was clearly going through something and needed help. But my mom shut that down immediately and told her the whole truth about the book club lies. After that, the calls from Chloe's family stopped. The person I was 4 months ago would have felt guilty, would have called her to make sure she was okay, would have somehow made her pain my responsibility. But that version of me died somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, and the new version was doing just fine. 6 weeks into my Dublin life, and I was genuinely thriving in ways I hadn't expected. The promotion came with responsibilities that pushed me professionally. My team actually appreciated my input instead of talking over me in meetings. And the company had extended my temporary housing while I searched for something permanent. I just signed a lease on a proper one-bedroom apartment in Grand Canal Dock with a view of the Liffey that almost made the rent worth it, and I was scheduled to move in the following month. I started exploring the city properly on weekends. Hit up the George's Street arcade for food. Took the train to Galway one Saturday just because I could, and generally lived like someone who wasn't carrying the weight of a dying relationship anymore. The irony wasn't lost on me that it took moving 3,200 miles away to remember what happiness felt like. Back in Denver, the fallout was still unfolding in spectacular fashion. Ben's girlfriend kept me updated through occasional messages. Apparently, Noah's reputation was completely destroyed, and people at his company started calling him Book Club as a nickname, which spread so fast that even his boss used it in a meeting. Noah tried to do damage control by claiming Chloe had pursued him and he'd just been a good friend, which made Isabella post even more screenshots showing he'd initiated most of their meetups. Chloe went silent on social media for about 3 weeks after that, then came back with a post about toxic people and learning to love yourself that everyone saw through immediately. Her friend group had apparently split. Half thinking she was the victim and half realizing she'd played everyone. The job she was so afraid to leave for me ended up letting her go during budget cuts, which I only found out about because my mom mentioned it casually during our weekly call. Then something completely unexpected happened. I got a message request on Instagram from someone named Isabella Martinez. The profile picture looked familiar. It was Noah's ex-girlfriend, the IRS agent who'd exposed the whole affair. My first instinct was to ignore it, figured she wanted to drag me into more drama, but curiosity won, and I opened it. Her message was straightforward: "Hey, I know this is random, but I wanted to reach out. Saw your post from Dublin, and honestly, good for you for getting out. I'm still dealing with the aftermath here, and sometimes I just need to talk to someone who actually gets it. No pressure, just thought I'd try." I sat there for a few minutes deciding whether to respond. Then figured, what the hell? We were both collateral damage in the same mess. I wrote back, and we started talking. First, just about the situation with Chloe and Noah, but then about other things, our jobs, how we both ignored red flags, how weird it felt to have our private lives become public gossip. She was funny and self-aware. Made jokes about how she'd turned into the crazy ex-girlfriend who exposed people on Instagram, even though she'd just been defending herself. A few weeks into our conversations, she admitted something that completely floored me. She'd been the one who sent me those screenshots of Chloe and Noah's messages back when I first arrived in Dublin. She said she'd found my Instagram after her own investigation into Noah's lies, saw that I'd moved to Dublin, and felt like I deserved to know the full truth, even if we never spoke. She'd used a burner number because she didn't want to freak me out with a random message from Noah's ex-girlfriend, but she wanted me to have the evidence. I thanked her for that. Told her those screenshots had given me closure I didn't know I needed, confirmed that leaving was absolutely the right choice. We started messaging regularly after that revelation. Nothing romantic at first, just two people who understood what it felt like to be betrayed by someone you trusted. She told me about her work at the IRS, how she'd actually gotten promoted recently and was handling more complex cases, how her CPA certification had opened up opportunities she was exploring. I told her about adjusting to Dublin, the differences in work culture, how strange it was to start over at 31, but also how liberating it felt. About 8 weeks into our messaging, she mentioned she'd always wanted to visit Dublin. Had never been to Europe at all, actually. And I made a spontaneous decision. "You should come visit," I said. "I'll show you around." She hesitated at first, said she didn't want it to be weird. And I told her it would only be weird if we made it weird, that my studio had a pull-out couch, and I knew all the good tourist spots. Now, 3 weeks later, I was picking her up from Dublin Airport, holding a sign that said, "Book Club Survivors," which made her laugh so hard other travelers stared at us. That first day was slightly awkward. We were both hyper-aware that we'd only known each other through texts and shared trauma. But by the time we hit the George's Street arcade for lunch, the conversation flowed naturally. She loved Dublin immediately. The history, the architecture, the fact that you could get Indian food at 2 a.m. I took her to all the places I'd discovered. We did the typical tourist things like Dublin Castle and Trinity College, but also just walked around neighborhoods talking about everything and nothing. On her 4th night there, we were having dinner at this Italian place in Temple Bar. And she said something that shifted everything. She looked at me and said, "You know what's weird? I feel more comfortable with you after 2 months of texting than I felt with Noah after 2 years." I knew exactly what she meant, because I felt the same way. We started actually dating after that. It happened naturally, without any big declaration or awkward conversation. Her 2-week vacation turned into discussions about remote work policies and visa options. She had vacation days saved up, and her job had flexibility for remote work, so she extended her stay to a month while we figured out if this was real or just trauma bonding. Somewhere around week 3, I realized I didn't want her to leave. And apparently, she felt the same, because she started researching IRS international positions and Irish work visas. Back in Denver, Chloe had apparently started seeing someone new, a CrossFit coach at her gym, and was posting vague stories about new beginnings and finding real love, which lasted approximately 2 weeks before his actual girlfriend showed up at the gym and caused a scene. The pattern was becoming clear to everyone except Chloe herself. But the real karma came when Isabella's colleagues at the IRS, after hearing her whole story, decided to look into some of Chloe's financial records. Turns out Chloe had been doing side marketing consulting for the past year and hadn't reported any of it on her taxes. And there was documentation of payments through Venmo and PayPal that she'd foolishly kept public. Isabella wasn't directly involved in the audit to avoid conflict of interest, but she definitely didn't discourage her coworkers from being thorough. Ben said the IRS investigation was moving forward, and Chloe was facing potential fines that would basically wipe out her savings. Noah had apparently left Denver entirely. Moved back to Florida with his tail between his legs after his company's HR got involved in the relationship drama. The book club nickname had followed him, though. Ben said people from the Denver office had told people at his new location, and it spread there, too. Months after Isabella's first visit, she made the decision to stay permanently. She'd found a position with an international tax firm in Dublin that actually paid better than her IRS job, and her CPA certification transferred smoothly to Irish standards. We'd moved into my new Grand Canal Dock apartment together. The one-bedroom, suddenly feeling perfect for 2 people starting fresh. My mom was thrilled when I told her. Said she'd always thought Chloe was too self-absorbed, and Isabella sounded much better for me. The weird part was how natural it all felt. Like we'd skipped over all the typical relationship anxiety because we'd already seen each other at our worst, already knew each other's damage, and chose to be together anyway. My phone buzzed one evening with a message from a Denver number I didn't recognize. It was Chloe, clearly using someone else's phone, with a long paragraph about how she'd made mistakes, how she'd been in therapy and realized she had commitment issues, how she wanted to start over if I'd just give her one more chance. I showed it to Isabella, and she rolled her eyes and said, "Let me guess. The CrossFit guy didn't work out." I deleted the message without responding. Some people don't deserve closure, and some chapters need to stay closed. That weekend, Isabella and I posted a photo together for the first time. Us at the River Liffey, with the Samuel Beckett Bridge in the background, both genuinely smiling. I captioned it, "Found my favorite book club," which was corny, but felt right. Within an hour, we both got blocked by Chloe on every platform, which told us she'd seen it. Noah apparently sent Isabella a message saying, "Really him?" And she replied, "Yeah, really him. Someone who actually respects me." And blocked him, too. 3 years with Chloe, and she'd never once made herself at home in my space the way Isabella did after 3 weeks. 6 months with Noah, and he'd never made Isabella feel valued the way I did just by listening. That told us everything we needed to know about the difference between settling and actually being happy. A year later, I heard through mutual friends that Chloe had moved to Austin and deleted all her social media after the IRS situation got resolved with significant fines. Noah was apparently engaged to someone new in Florida. And honestly, I hoped he'd learned something, but doubted it. As for me and Isabella, we were exactly where we needed to be, doing work we loved, building something real that wasn't based on lies or hidden agendas. Sometimes the best revenge really is just living well, and sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads you to the best thing that could happen. Dublin taught me that. Isabella reinforced it. And neither of us are ever looking back. What do you think about this story?